What's up, everyone? This is the Daily Fix Show. I'm your host, Keith Fleming. Again, no Joe Matz this week. Maybe eventually he will join me for a Daily Fix Show. But just a reminder, we changed up the format this year. Today, we are going to be talking about my favorite DK plays, 4,500 or lower. I'm going to give you 5 DK prop bets, and then give you a couple of single showdown lineups on DraftKings. But let's hit it, boys. What's up, everyone? I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, ate a lot of turkey and other good stuff. My personal favorite was my mom got me a Chick-fil-A chocolate pie, which they only have at the original Chick-fil-A. It's freaking phenomenal. I've practically ate the entire thing in less than 24 hours, but that's okay. Again, my partner in crime, Joe Matz. I don't know what Joe's doing. I guess he's just, gotten too big for me. I'm just kidding. He will be back next week. I promise. I know I said that last week, but next week he will be here. But real quickly, before we get into this week's plays, I always want to be transparent and account for, the picks that I give on this show. So let's kind of recap them. Last week, I ended up only giving you 4 plays on DK 4,500 and under, and that was because Michael Wilson Jr. was a late scratch. But pretty good week. Jaden Reed, 19.2 points. He ended up being wide receiver 11. Darius Slayton, 18.2 points. He ended up being wide receiver 14. Trey McBride scored 9.3 points, tight end 12. And then the one was Cole Kmet, 5 points, tight end 24. The prop bets, unfortunately, they were awful. Justin Fields, over 1.5 touchdown. Montgomery, over 49.5 yards. We got one right. Pollard, over 67.5. Nope. Ford, over 80. Nope. And then great call, Keith. I did an alternate line. Cup, over 100 yards. I said, I even like him over 110. I don't know if he had 20 yards receiving, so my bad. But this week, I have some plays I really like, and Joe Matz had the nerve to text me some of his favorite DraftKings plays, 4,500 under. So I will mention them because Joe is very smart. There's a reason I call him Joe the Brain Matz. But let's get right into my favorite DK plays, 4,500 and under. I'm going to start with Tyjae Spears. He's 4,400 versus Carolina. This is the most risky of these 5 plays because I'm a big believer in volume. That is kind of what I'm looking for in these plays. He doesn't get a ton of volume. Like, he's on the field a lot, but I don't think he's had more than 6 carries in a couple of weeks. He is involved in the passing game. But it's just Carolina is so bad versus the run. They're 31st on DK versus it. But really, they should be dead last. I mean, you got to remember, Denver gave up 7 touchdowns and 500 yards in one game. That is why they're 32nd. So I don't know if anybody's going to pass them when you give up that much in one game. I just think there's a chance the Tennessee just runs it down the Panthers' throat. And in that case, obviously Henry's going to have a big game, but you can see a lot of Derrick Henry and Tyjae Spears. Spears is the kind of person that can bust a big run at any play. Do the same thing in the passing game. So I do like that play. Now, the rest of these plays, I feel really good about. Demario Douglas, 4,400. The last 5 weeks, averaging over 7 targets per. Again, we're looking for value. And in cash games, which is what I recommend people doing, which is like your, single entries, double ups, etc. You're just trying to get 3 to 4 times whatever their price is. So anybody in this 4,500 or below range, we're looking for 12 to 15 points in your gold. Anything more than that, that's great. If they get close to it, that's okay too. So if he's seeing 7 targets per game for a 5-week stretch, that's really good. He's getting volume. There's a good chance he'll get to that 12, 15 points. 21.5 target share in that span. But the big thing, he's now played 2 games without Kendrick Bourne. We know he's on IR. In those 2 games, 16 targets, 11 receptions, and he's now all the way up to 26 among wide receivers and yardage per route. So I really feel good about that play. You know, I love the tight ends. I talked about them last week. Again, this week, I got a couple of tight ends. Let's start with Evan Engram, 4,200 at Houston. Houston allows the most targets to opposing tight ends in the NFL. Houston allows the most receptions to tight ends in the NFL. In the first game, Engram saw 8 targets, caught 7 passes against another bad defense versus tight ends. The Atlanta Falcons caught 7 passes. You see the theme here? I would be shocked if he doesn't get 10 to 12 points. Like, absolutely shocked. If he scores a touchdown, I think he'll be a top 5 tight end for sure this week. This is not a homer pick, I swear, but Kyle Pitts, 4,000 versus New Orleans. New Orleans is real bad versus opposing tight ends, give up a lot of receptions. They're 28th on DK versus tight ends. Ridder is back. I don't know if that's good or bad as a Falcons fan. I'm just going to be perfectly honest. It is good for Pitts, though. He was not really targeted that much in the 2 games that Taylor Heineke's played. But in the last 3 games that Pitts played with Ridder as quarterback, full games, 21 targets, 14 receptions, 177 yards and a touchdown, averaged just under 13 points per game, and those on DK, 12.56. So again, to do that math, 4K, we want 3 to 4 times. He's averaging 12.56. We get that. It's perfect. We'll take it. And then my favorite play this week, maybe on DK, period. Greg Dortch, 3,300 versus the Rams. He saw 8 targets last week with Michael Wilson out. Michael Wilson is going to be out again. They've already ruled him out. There's a chance Marquise Brown doesn't play this week. Dortch played 70% of snaps last week, caught 6 passes. Last season, he had 6 games where he played 70% of snaps or more. 7 or more receptions in 4 of 6. Averaged 15 points per game in PPR leagues in those games. Was a top 20 receiver for the week, 4 out of 6. Top 30, 5 out of 6. He's going to see that 70% snap, whether or not Brown plays. But if Brown doesn't play, he could see 80, 90% of snaps. Last year in games that he saw 80 to 90% of snaps. Double-digit catches in both of them. So, love Greg Dortch this week. Going to be in a ton of lineups. Joe Matz did text him. I was going to be a jerk and say, screw you, Joe. You didn't want to come do the show with me. You're out hanging out with your family and friends the day after Thanksgiving, but he's too smart. I got to read him. He was copying off of me a little bit because he had Demario Douglas. He had in his notes at least 4 receptions, 6 targets over his last 4 games, 30% target rate, 16th highest PFF grade versus man. I did not know this. That's why I love Joe the Brain Matz. Giants, 3rd in man rate. So that means he's going to see a lot of man. And again, he's the 16th highest PFF grade versus that. Joe's got David Njoku, 4,100 at Denver. 5 straight games with double figures and facing the worst defense against tight ends. He says, don't question in cash games. Damn it, Joe, now you're going to have to make me kind of reconsider my tight ends this week. Khalil Shakir for the Bulls. I guess we're in basketball now. For the Bills, 3,600 at Philly. He's broken 15 points now twice in the last month and faces an Eagle defense that they funnel the pass because they're so good against the run and they score so many points. Teams are forced to throw them. They just have to. It's really the only way you can move the ball. And then they are 31st in yards allowed to number 3 receivers and have given up the most points to receivers overall. Joe the Brain, again, this makes me feel good about the Dortch play. He has him as well. It doesn't have anything that I don't have, so that's okay. And then finally, he's got Trey Palmer for Tampa Bay, 3,100 at Indy. He's had multiple catches and at least 4 targets in 4 straight games. This week he faces a Colts team who run zone a leading 89% of the time. Per player profile, Palmer has a 60% route win rate for zone. I'm pretty sure that would be in like the top 5 or 10 in the NFL. So definitely want to consider Trey Palmer. All right, let's move on to these DK prop bets. Try to win some money here. Let's start off with Evan Engram, right? I was just talking about him, the Texans, bad versus tight ends. You got over 4, and I'm sorry, I meant to mention this again. You're never going to hear me take an under. You're just not. It's no fun to root and win money and under. Who wants to root for something to go under? I'm going to always do the overs. That's just the way I am. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. But Evan Engram, over 4.5 receptions, minus 150. Texans give up over 8 targets, over 6.5 receptions per game to opposing tight ends. Engram has caught 5 or more passes in 7 of 10 games this year. Again, he had 7 receptions versus the Texans earlier this year. In the other 3 games, he has 4 receptions. So I would be shocked if he doesn't go over that 4.5. That's minus 150. Second one, let's get right into the alternate lines, which I love. Tank Dell, alternate receiving line, over 90 yards, plus 240. This dude is on fire, and he's being targeted. Like all of a sudden, the Texans figured out, hey, this may be our best receiver. Maybe we should throw it to him more. 45 targets the last 3 weeks. 45. It's unreal. Over 100 yards in 2 of 3. The Colts, they run the cover 3D, 4th highest rate in the NFL. Remember, he said they play zone at the most. That's true. Dell, 29% target rate versus cover 3. I said the Colts. I'm sorry. The Jags run cover 3 at the 4th highest rate. Dell with a 29% target rate versus cover 3 this year, and he is 5th in yards per route among wide receivers versus, again, that cover 3 defense. I think that game's going to be a shootout anyway. I really like Dell to have a big game. All right, so I mentioned, actually, I didn't get to mention him because he's a little higher, but one of my favorite plays this week is Josh Downs. Now, people are going to look at Downs in DFS and go, well, he had 2 really bad games. And he did. But if you don't look at the bigger picture, he was dealing with a knee injury, and he had been playing consistently 75% or more of the snaps. In those games, the last 2 weeks, because of the knee injury, he played less than 50 in both of them. So that was why he had so little targets. That was why he had so little receptions. This week, he is playing a Tampa Bay team that by far gives up the most receptions per game to receivers in the slot. And they give up by far the most fantasy points to receivers in the slot. Guess what? Josh Downs has the 4th most snaps from the slot of any wide receiver in football. He lines up there 75% of the time. So I've got 2 different ones I'm doing with Downs here this week. The first is an alternate receiver in yards over 60. That's plus 160. And I'm going to also do Josh Downs receptions over 3.5. That's minus 180. All right, to round out my plays this week, give me Desmond Ridder, alternate rushing yards, over 25 yards, plus 215. I feel real good about this one. And if you're wondering why, Ridder obviously has the ability to rush. He's got 150 yards on the season and 4 touchdowns in basically 7.5 games now that he's played. Half a game versus Tennessee, and then, a few plays after Heineke got knocked out of the last game. But the Saints, they got some serious issues with rushing QBs. They've allowed 34 yards or more, which that's a ton, to half of the QBs they face this year, 5 out of 10. Basically, any quarterback they've played this year that has the ability to run has ran for 34 yards or more. And then just in their last 4 games, 176 yards allowed to opposing QBs on the ground. I just would be shocked. Like, I know Arthur Smith's a bad coach. I want him fired so bad. But come on. Like, they've had to see this. They've had an extra week to prepare for this game and go, man, the Saints really have issues covering running quarterbacks. We have a quarterback that can run. I think there's going to be design plays. I think they're going to be telling Ridder that, look, if Saints run a good bit of man, you see the backs of those defenders take off. I really like his chances to go over 25 rushing yards. And at plus 215, those are really good odds for, again, a defense, 34 yards or more in half of their 10 games and 176 yards the last 4. Just for reference, Tyson Bagent had 70 yards versus them. Trevor Lawrence, 59 yards. Josh Dobbs, like 45 yards. Like, these running quarterbacks can get it. I think he will. All right. We're going to finish the show with some showdown lineups. We do the primetime games. Sunday night, we got the Ravens or maybe the other way around. I'm sorry. I think it's the Chargers at the Ravens. I got that wrong. My bad. But either way, I don't care. My captain's going to be Lamar Jackson. Anytime I see a Ravens showdown and basically it's not a good defense that the Ravens are playing, I'm going to put Lamar there. I just like his upside. I mean, he's arguably the original fantasy cheat code. I know Jalen Hurts is in that category now, but so he's going to be my captain at 18K. I'll go ahead and tell you, I really think that the Ravens are going to do work. I think that Chargers team is soft. This Ravens team is very physical. So I'm going to have a lot of Ravens. I'm going to have Rashad Bateman, Isaiah Likely. We got Keenan Allen, who I mean, you can't have a Chargers game at this point and not have Keenan Allen. I mean, it's getting to the point where he is all that they have. And I know it's a tough matchup. I think the Ravens are like second versus opposing wide receivers. But, I mean, let's be honest. Keenan Allen is Keenan Allen for a reason. He's going to go bananas. I really believe that. Give me Rashad Bateman, 4K. I'll kind of get to why Bateman is in there in just a second. But I'm going to also have Quentin Johnston, 3K. And again, you'll kind of understand what I'm doing here in just a second. The reason is I really wanted Gus Edwards in my lineup. I mean, it's getting to the point where it's ridiculous. It's so similar to Jamal Williams last year. Gus Edwards is 8,600. But goodness gracious, like, can a dude score more points with less? His last 5 games, here's his rushing totals: 14 for 64, 19 for 80, 5 for 52, 11 for 24, 12 for 62. On DK, he scored 21.4 points, 29.4 points, 17.2 points, 9.8 points, and 21 points. Why is that? Dude has 9 touchdowns in the last 5 games. I mean, they just give him the ball in the red zone. It sucks for Lamar owners like me. Lamar would be the number 1 guy in fantasy if he was rushing more in the red zone, but I had to get Edwards into that lineup. That's why Johnson and Bateman are there. And the other guy I got to have is Isaiah Likely. People were asking this week, I was asked on ESPN Northwest Florida on Wednesday, if you had Mark Andrews, who would you be trying to pick up? It's without a doubt Isaiah Likely. Like, very talented guy. They drafted him last year from Coastal Carolina. Games he saw 5 targets or more last year, averaged 14.4 points in PPR leagues. And oh, by the way, Chargers are 30th versus opposing tight ends on DK. So real quickly to go over that lineup again, I got Lamar Jackson, 18K. He's the captain. Keenan Allen, 11.2. Rashad Bateman, 4K. Gus Edwards, 8,600. Quentin Johnston, 3K. And Isaiah Likely, 5,200. All right, we got one more game to get to. It's the Monday night game, Minnesota, Chicago. I went back and forth because, again, you're trying to kind of find in these showdown lineups, how's this game going to go, right? Like, can you get a feel for it? This is a game I have a hard time getting a feel for. And when that's the case, I just try to pick the guy that I think is going to score the most points. I really consider going with DJ Moore. I mean, if you look at the points he's put up with Justin Fields, it's been unbelievable. And Minnesota is one of the worst defenses in the league versus number 1 receivers and wide receivers in general. But I had a little bit more flexibility with Josh Dobbs as my captain, 15K. And let's be honest, like, it's less likely that Dobbs has a stinker than DJ Moore because you got the rushing upside. I mean, the Bears defense isn't very good anyway. And maybe Justin Jefferson comes back. I hope he does. I would not put him in my lineup if he does. He's just so expensive. He's the most expensive guy on the slate, and he's coming back from IR. But if he comes back, that's good for Dobbs, obviously. So I'm going to put Dobbs as my captain, 15K. Got to have DJ Moore, like I was just talking about, 10-4. Got to have Justin Fields. Like, I mean, come on. Again, another fantasy cheat code. You got 2 fantasy cheat codes, quarterback, because they run so much. He's 11-2. Because of the news, or I shouldn't say the news, it looks like as of right now, the Bears starting running back's not going to play. He looks doubtful. So I'm going to go with Roscoe Johnson, 3K. I have $800 left over with this lineup. If it ends up that he does end up playing, I'm going to make some changes. But to round up the lineup, what I'm going to do, and I like doing this, and I've had some success with it. I'm taking both kickers. Greg Joseph, 5K, Cario Santos, 4,600. These guys consistently score like 8 to 12 points because neither one of these offenses are very good in the red zone. And both of these guys got strong legs. They've made a good bit of kicks from 40 to 50 yards. And in a game, again, that I don't have a feel. I mean, yeah, this could turn into a shootout, but I kind of feel like that this is going to be one of those games that maybe it's like 24-21. I just hope maybe each of the kickers end up kicking 3-4 field goals. And again, like with Dobbs and Fields, we know they're going to rush. They're going to score some points. Obviously, they're going to get some passing yards. They get touchdowns. That's great. I feel good about DJ Moore. I do feel good about Roscoe Johnson because of his price. Again, 3K, we're looking for 8-9 points, and we're good. So I'm going to take the kickers. Like, why not? And just try to take the guaranteed points because in this game, guys are either really expensive and they get a very high volume, but you can only put like 2 or 3 in your lineup, especially if you're using one of them as your captain. Or you can not play those guys with a high volume. Like, obviously, you could put like Dobbs or Fields as your captain and then have a lot of lower price guys. But, I mean, that's too risky to me. You want to take basically the 3 guys that you feel like are going to score the most points. For me, that's Dobbs, Moore, and Fields. And then you want to fill it out. And I feel most comfortable that those kickers are going to at least get me, say, 14 points combined. I'll take that because when you look at the other guys in this price range, we're talking like Powell. Again, if Jefferson returns, he's basically worthless. Chicago's other wide receivers, which if your name's not Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, you don't really get any volume. So that's going to be the lineup for Monday night. But I appreciate you guys, checking us out. Hold on. We got a question. I'm sorry. Just got offered Tank Dell for Jamarr Chase, PPR. Am I crazy for heavily considering it? Is it a dynasty league? If you can let me know that. Because if it's a dynasty league, no. Like, I would not do that. If it's not a dynasty league, I like it. I mean, to me, I don't know what your record is and stuff, but Jamarr Chase is still going to get a crazy volume. Like, we know that the rest of the year. Because it looks like there was a report today, T. Higgins is going to be shut down, right, for the rest of the season. It's a redraft. I don't hate it. I mean, I was just talking about it. Tank Dell, when he's seen 5 or more targets, he scored 20 or more fantasy points in every game that he's seen 5 or more targets. You look at the last couple of weeks, I mean, double-digit targets 2 of the last 3. I think that, the Texans have kind of realized that I never believed Nico Collins was a true number 1 wide receiver. And because of that, Tank Dell's kind of found some space. And we all know CJ Stroud's incredible. To me, would you rather have – this is kind of the question you got to ask. Would I rather have Jamarr Chase, who's going to see more targets? There's no doubt about that. But with Browning as your QB, or would you rather have Tank Dell, who, again, the last couple of weeks, his volume has been kind of near what Chase has in, a lot of weeks, with a much better quarterback. And I think a much better, honestly, schedule. The other thing is I just think the Bengals are going to really try to lean on Mixon. They're not out of this playoff hunt, as crazy as it seems. And the formula for them with a pretty good defense is, okay, we're going to run the ball with Mixon. And I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe Browning ends up being good. But I don't think you're crazy at all. Some people might say, man, you can't do that, but we're only talking about the rest of the season. And you're talking about, yes, one of the best receivers in football in Jamarr Chase, but with a backup QB compared to Tank Dell with, Stroud's right now? I mean, like, honestly, 5th or 6th best QB in the league. And he seems to just keep getting better each week. It's crazy. I don't think you're crazy at all. It's just a question of, would you rather have the volume or would you rather have the upside? To me, that's what it is. Because Chase probably is going to consistently, score you 10 to 15 points if it's PPR league every week, no doubt. But is he really going to have that many monster games with Jake Browning? I don't know. So I definitely don't think you're crazy. Appreciate the question. Gator, we got any more or you want to shut it down? I think that means that we don't have any more. So, guys, be sure to follow Fantasy and Frames. We got YouTube, we got Twitter, we got TikTok, we got Instagram, we got Facebook, we got it all. Seriously, some of the best fantasy content on the planet. I mean, no matter what you look at, you need IDP, we got it. You need DFS, we got it. Redraft, you name it, we got it. We got you covered. So be sure to check that out. Be sure to check out, follow all the people on Fantasy and Frames because they all have great content and stuff that they post to their individual Twitter handles. I know everybody wants to grow their following, including me. So go ahead and follow me at Keith Fleming. But I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their Thanksgiving weekend. And I hope you have a great fantasy football weekend. Be sure to check out the Fantasy and Frames Sunday morning show where they get you ready for the Week 12 main slate, Sunday night, Monday night game. And you can ask all of your last start sit questions, etc. to the ton of great contributors are on there every Sunday. So again, I hope everybody has a great rest of your weekend. I hope my plays kill it. Again, the DK plays feel very good about the props. We'll see. We had a bad first week. Hopefully this week's better. And maybe I can figure out a way next week to get Joe Matz to join me. We'll see. But guys, have a great weekend. We'll see you soon.